All right. Good morning and welcome to the call, everybody. Super grateful that you're here this morning. I'm going to talk a little bit about bullying and entitlement. Now, these are two things that I feel like a lot of parents are worried about. And in like the greater, broader parenting conversation, um, people use these two concepts as a reason why. A reason why we need to be more firm. We must teach these lessons today so that my child does not become an entitled bully, right?
Can you clean the dishwasher, please?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
No problem, bud. Love you. Um, Now, here's the really interesting thing that I want to address about bullying and entitlement, because the conversation that I see around this topic, or these two topics, they're very closely aligned, and I'll get into that in a minute, um, is a conversation.
Mom, where's a goddamn fork?
I'm not sure, buddy. Do you need some
There's
help?
no clean ones in the dishwasher. I don't see any.
Do you need some help?
Yes.
Okay, I'll help. All right, I'm gonna keep talking and walk out there and find the fork. um, so here's the thing: is that the conversation that I'm seeing around bullying and entitlement is not addressing the adult bullying and entitlement that is really apparent and present even in the conversations itself. I'm just going to mute 1 second while I use some water to clean this fork. Okie dokie, I'm back. All right. So I truly believe that bullying and entitlement are learned behaviors, and they're learning them a lot from the ways that they're being parented. Um, I see entitlement in the parenting discussion so much. Um, you you see adults saying things like, I mean, because I said so is an incredibly entitled statement. We're not going to explain or embellish or share reasons why or budge even a little bit because I said so, because I'm the adult. And right from that premise, we don't even have to get very much deeper into explaining and describing what I'm talking about. And I feel like some of this stuff has gotten better over time, though, you know, I'm not a child anymore and we don't have these structures in my home. But, you know, I remember growing up with things that were like the parents were entitled to the best plate of food. And sometimes they would get something really fancy and they would serve us a completely different meal that was like, far subpar to what they were eating. And, even things like, I pay the bills and this is my chair and nobody's allowed to touch it. And that's not to say that we shouldn't be allowed to have our own personal space. Like we really love that chair and we don't want anybody to touch it. And that would be a completely different conversation. Like, if we had that kind of a personality type where if somebody was sitting on our chair, it would really mess with those, like the way that the cushions feel. And so, like, that was something that was really important to us. There could be a conversation around it that would be like, wow, this chair being this certain way is really important to me, which would be a much different conversation than, say, I pay the bills, I bought the chair, my chair, right? Um, so it's so much in that attitude. And even the way that we're like, this is my house, I pay the bills. And you hear so many parents say, you live under my roof and you will not do this or that or this or that while under my roof. And this is all by definition. That is entitlement. So then,
After you call, can you please do a pick a call?
absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Um, And then this is like where it kind of butts up against each other, where the parallel touches each other between bullying and entitlement. It's going to feel a lot like bullying when we act entitled. We're standing there from a place of power, standing between somebody and them just genuinely feeling comfortable or valid in a home, because a child has no power whatsoever to pay their own bills. They're not even legally allowed to work until they reach certain ages, much less any of the other like stuff, right? So you're using your physical power, your financial power, your power of well being, and all of this power that you hold as an adult to take all of the best stuff for yourself. And a lot of parents, like, and of course, not you. When I'm saying you, I'm not talking to y'all. Like, I believe that you're engaging in unhealthy power structures, right? um, you as in the greater you, as society as a whole. And when coming from these older paradigms, then we're standing in a place of power, wielding that power to take what we believe is rightfully ours, and completely unflexible in that, because we even feel like justified in this behavior. Um, and particularly because parents take liberties to physically stand between somebody in these things. They don't take the time to listen and hear. And all of these things are aspects of bullying. So, you know, it all exists within the power structures, and it's teaching children not only that entitlement and bullying and strong arming and looking out for number one above everybody else, which is another topic, right? Because looking out for ourselves is really important. Like, we need to take care of number one. A lot of times in life, if we don't take care of ourselves, nobody else is going to. And that is a recipe for burnout. And caring for the experience of others is also important, right? And in how we carry ourselves, so much of that nuance exists. It's there inside of us, and that's what our children are seeing. Our children are seeing the way that we interact with our power, if we do that with integrity, or if we do that with a lot of strong arming, our children are watching the ways that we're navigating through life and all of the different structures. And this is why the modeling piece is so big, because a lot of the unhealthy behaviors that we have ourselves, we learned from watching how our parents interacted with this stuff. And um, a big part of the reason that we're here doing this work is because we have to undo all of the things that we learned when we were being strong armed in these same ways. And so we're here to unlearn that so that we don't continue to strong arm our children in similar ways. And so, I personally, when I see this conversation about bullying and how kids are mean and entitlement and how kids today are going to grow up incredibly entitled and all of that, I'm kind of sitting over here from a perspective where I'm going, well, I mean, y'all are missing the big part of the conversation, that's you. And if you're really worried that your children are going to grow up to be entitled bullies, like, how would you combat that? What is entitlement? Where do you see entitlement? How do you unpack entitlement? How do you address these things within yourself so that you're not passing that on to your children? If you're worried about bullying, where might you be showing up in a way that is bullying towards your child? And this is like, it's really at the core of why, for me, gentle parenting and doing this work is so important. Because if we don't unpack these things, if we don't look at them and address them head on, if we're still missing a big old portion of the conversation, or like we haven't seen something from the right angle, we will continue to pass these things on. And the very things that we're afraid of will come to be because we didn't take a look at them. And children are not blank slates to be molded into our image. Children are a combination of a lot of things. They're human beings with their own personality, first and foremost. And then beyond that, nurture, nature, environment, personal experience, all of these things are going to lend towards who your child eventually becomes. Of course, that personality and who they are is foremost and primary in all of that. Um, and as we move through living life with our children, we have options and opportunities for how we're going to carry ourselves. And that, at the end of the day, is going to make the biggest impact, because that's what they're taking away. And particularly on the interrelational stuff, the personal stuff, how we do relationships, we learn all of that from watching those around us, not necessarily our parents, them primarily because of the most exposure. But we're seeing it on TV and everywhere, like our friends and our family and the extendeds and all of that. And um, you know, society holds so many harmful beliefs, particularly around the interpersonal stuff, that it's almost impossible to not have picked up on some of that, kind of subconsciously, even, and maybe not even noticed that we were trying it on for size or doing this thing because we'd picked up on it somewhere. And so, taking a time to look at that so that we're not passing on all of this unhealthy interpersonal stuff, so that our children may have deeper, more intimate, clearer, like better communication, like relationships that enhance their lives and that they're enhancing the lives of their loved ones, as opposed to being stuck in all of these cycles of entitlement and bullying, which, it leads to a whole bunch of other stuff. So, anyways, I'll leave it at that. Hopefully, this has been helpful. I really feel passionate about the topic because I see these words get thrown around so freely with so little personal accountability for what and why. Like, why is this occurring? And how could we step into our like fullest clarity so that we can make the big change around the impact that we're having on our children? All right, I will shut off the recording and get to the sharing portion of the call.